Same eye on it? It's an old MacBook.
No, it's a new one. It's M1. They took away the.
Okie dokie. Remember that from Beverly Hills Cop, the okie dokie dance? Okie dokie, okie dokie, okie dokie. Okay, so this is our last talk for today. Just want to quickly remind everyone, everything doesn't end for today with the security community. We do a monthly meetup down at the Cheshire Lounge in Clayton called STLSec. Happens the second Wednesday of every month. We go down there, we find a vendor to buy drinks, we buy our own drinks, we talk shop. It's just a really good place to interface with some folks throughout the year. And then it's just a really fun event in general. I won't be there next week because I will be way tired after this. But come check out STLSec. It's really awesome. It's a good time. So Michael Collins, another really good friend here. We've been closer than I would prefer sometimes.
I got stories.
And we've been colleagues together for quite some time. I look up to Mike. He's a great mentor, and he's got some really fun stuff for us today, and some physical demonstrations. So I love it. Everybody, give it up for Mike.
Thank you. Thank you. Can you guys hear me okay? So I'm basically the last talk between us and happy hour here, although happy hour's already started. I recommend drinking a bit before I light my device off here anyway, so go get a drink, relax. It's going to be fine. Nobody's going to die, I promise. Title of my talk today is Surviving the Toaster Apocalypse. The Robot Apocalypse, building a practical, portable, short-range EMP device. A few disclaimers before I get going. My employer has nothing to do with this. This is all my thoughts. Just want to make that super clear. It's basically my views, and probably not any other employer or rational human being here. So, a few other disclaimers. If you are a robot, I need you to disclose it now, please. Anyone? Ben. I was sure Ben was a robot somehow. So, if you are a robot or you have some sort of pacemaker in, possibly, I would recommend not getting super close to the stage while I'm doing this. This should be super low powered, but when I get to part of my talk here, you'll see why I'm a little nervous about some of this stuff. No actual robots were harmed as part of the creation of this presentation. So, in case anyone is a robot and they didn't disclose that they're a robot, luckily we have a completely foolproof mechanism of identifying robots. So if everybody could fill out this thing, let me know where the crosswalks are. I'm gonna find you if you're a mechanical being here. So, quick agenda. We'll talk a little bit about kind of current state of robot technology, kind of the weaponization of robots, which has been really interesting. Why don't we just hack the robots? This is a hacking conference. Why don't we just hack it? We'll talk a little bit about just EMP in general, like what it is as a concept, like some natural and artificial sources of it, and then we'll kind of dive right into some of my designs that I came up with for this. A little about me. I've worked in InfoSec since '96, but I always tell people that I'm what happens to teenage hackers when they grow up and get a job. So I actually started little, probably about I started programming in 5th grade, started hacking in 6th grade. I'm old, so things were very different back then. It was a lot of phone system hacking and such, but yeah, so been around a while. I'm a previous 2-time presenter at B-Sides. I gave a keynote one year, and then the thing a lot of people remember me for is I gave a drone talk about basically wiring a wireless hacking kit to a drone and using it to like land on a building. It was cool because I could get about 5 minutes of flight time, about 12 hours of compute time to do my wireless hacking, and then take the drone back off. And the whole thing would call back out over a cell kit. So I could be like logged into the whole kit from my laptop the whole time, which was pretty cool. So yeah, so I'm a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. My nickname at Jiu-Jitsu is Cardio. There's literally people who only know me as Cardio. It's not a nice nickname. When I started Jiu-Jitsu, I weighed around 260 pounds. I was in terrible shape, so I got the nickname back then, and then I've kind of just grown into it over time, but really like Jiu-Jitsu a lot. I'm a avid video gamer. Probably when I'm not hacking, I'm either doing Jiu-Jitsu or video games. Dog dad, as you see, and then recently we got horses, so I think I'm like Rip on Yellowstone, basically, if you've seen that show. I'm not really, I'm not that cool, but I'm working on it. So let's dive right in. I promise I didn't coordinate with Wolf on the slides here. We literally use the same graphic here, even, but I promise. So robots, from a weaponized standpoint, have actually been around for a lot longer than you would think, right? These pictures here, the ones on the left are that's actually Germans that have captured. It's called a Goliath, and basically it was like a tank tread type design. It would be fitted with explosives. You could drive it under things, blow it up. So those have been around quite a while. You can see kind of a museum version of one on the bottom. The Soviets had a similar type of thing, which is what you see on the right. That picture's from 1940. It's called a Soviet TT-26 teletank, which could also be used to describe toasters, apparently, because it's a letter and a number here. So there are quite a few like robot type things currently in use from a military perspective. This one on the far left is a South Korean design. They use it to watch the demilitarized zone. So it's kind of a sentry if you play Call of Duty. I imagine it's a lot like that. Probably not. This one in the middle is called the Goalkeeper. It's a Dutch design. It actually sits on the ship, and it's pretty semi-autonomous as far as like going out and like trying to shoot stuff down that's trying to get close to the ship. So again, kind of a sentry type design. And then everybody's super familiar with the Predator drones that are in wide use. Basically flown from back here in the States, bombing stuff overseas, used by the military and the CIA, wiped out a lot of people with those specifically. A lot of robots currently in use from a military perspective are very similar to this kind of design again, right? Like it's a typical kind of tank tread type of design. This Talon on the left, if anybody served in the Gulf, probably saw these a bit. They use them for all sorts of stuff, right? Like they use them to kind of hunt down IEDs. They use it, just all sorts of things. This one in the middle is, they call it Themis. It's an unmanned version. It's an unmanned thing. Again, tank tread design. These aren't super fast typically, and they're all generally remote controlled, right? So that's true with the Predator. That's true with a lot of these tank tread type designs that you see here. This one on the right is a Chinese design. They primarily use it apparently on the border between India and China right now for like patrol things like that. You can see this one specifically has a gun mounted to the top of it, so it's not like this stuff doesn't exist already, right? Like there's definitely weaponized robots that are out there currently. There's also a number of home versions of just kind of consumer robots. This one on the left is it's Amazon Astro. It's kind of a new one that they've come up with. Basically, the thought is it has the ability to drive around your house, kind of check on the dog, throw your laundry in. I don't think it can throw the laundry in, but just stuff like that. That one's about $999. So I decided that wasn't a good candidate for killing a robot today. This is already probably my most expensive talk, which we'll get into here in a second. But there's the robot vacuums, which are super popular. And then this one on the right is just like $199 kid-friendly, like, teach them STEM stuff. I would have, several years ago at a B-Sides conference in Vegas, there was a guy giving a talk on robot security, right? Like a consumer-grade robot and what you would do to kind of protect all of that. And before I went into that talk, I would have said, I don't really give a F if somebody could like break into my robot at home and drive it around. I just didn't see the risk posture there. I wasn't really super worried about it. When I got out of that, I was really actually way more worried about it because you don't really think about all of the electronics that are in even a reasonable consumer grade robot, right? There's probably a microphone so that it can listen to what's going on. There's probably a camera, so it might be spying on me while I'm in the bathroom, maybe. I don't know. I don't know why anybody would want to do that, but it could happen. There is typically a gyroscope in the robot so that it can orient itself, kind of detect these types of things. And then he said something that really got me thinking. He's like, and the gyroscope can be used as a microphone. And I was like, well, that's interesting because everybody's always worried about like your phone listening to you and stuff, and we think about that a lot, right? And all of these tech companies are very clear. They're like, we don't use the microphone to listen to you on your device. But, just food for thought, if you can use the gyroscope as a listening device, you're kind of parsing words there a little bit, right? And I got to thinking about kind of the potential, especially like, because I know people have tried to replicate this where like you sit at dinner and you talk about stuff and it just never happens. But everybody here's got a story about how like something happened and there's just no chance anybody was searching it around you. And I got to thinking, even it could be something simple as sometimes there's like an inflection in your voice before you talk about something that you're excited about. And maybe it could even hear that, capture just a little bit of vibration after that, and then match that up to like a database and be like, that guy just talked about camping. Which would never happen in my case, but and then feed you stuff on your feed for that. So again, while they seem benign, there's a lot. There's actually some stuff to worry about, even with a consumer grade robot, right? This one may be a little hard to see. Just on a whim, I was like, because you can get everything on fucking Amazon, right? Like, so I'm out on Amazon. I'm like, there's no chance that you can get a home defense robot on Amazon. And guess what? There's a home defense robot on Amazon. It can be had for the super reasonable price of $26,000 if you'd like to invest in such a thing. The text here is a little small, but basically there's a spot in it where it's saying that you can fit it with a fire extinguisher or weapon. Right, so I'm a little worried about this one. I feel like you'd maybe shoot the dog or something more likely than you would shoot an intruder. But again, like this stuff isn't crazy far off, right? Similar to that Amazon little robot that goes around, they've now got little. I was actually going to do a follow-on talk to my drone talk originally about basically making a custom rig that would, like, if a camera went off on my house, like the drone would get up and go, hit wherever the stuff was going on and take video. Well, it turns out Amazon was already working on that. There's this little drone, basically, it'll go land on a power base. When something's going on or when you need it to go look around, it'll pop up. It can fly around your house. So again, this stuff is not crazy far away, right? Like there's a lot of capabilities in this space already. Wasn't really too worried about the robot thing though, and it's kind of like it's a little like the auto driving stuff in my Tesla, right? Like all of a sudden I was just really completely shocked by the amount of progress that had been made in this space, right? So everybody's seen this guy, presumably. Let's see if it'll actually work. This is their Atlas one. This is a bipedal version. This is Boston Dynamics. Both of these are Boston Dynamics designs, right? What's crazy is not just how balanced he is. He's very hard to, you can kind of come up and push on him and trying to push him over. He's very good at kind of getting back on his feet. But just the amount of stuff that they can have him do now as far as like, really kind of tight spots that he's walking on, really well balanced. They're going to do backflips here in a second, which is really crazy, and land on their feet. This is not super autonomous. It's a bit of a pre-programmed, kind of choreographed kind of setup that they're doing here, but combined with a lot of electronics that really make this a capability, right? Like so this is kind of the Terminator style, right? Like this is the dual leg, kind of robot. This spot is the dog one that a lot of people are familiar with. Now, there's two things that are interesting about this. One, this guy that's in the background that's picking on the robot is basically in every video that they have when he's like, somebody's beating up on a robot. So when the robot apocalypse does happen, this guy's first to go, I promise you. Like, so, probably you want to be close to this guy when the robot apocalypse happens, because it'll be like the bear catching the slowest person. Like they'll go after him first, and then you could hopefully run. But what's crazy about this one, this is all completely autonomous, right? Like there's no really pre-programming going on here. It just knows that it needs to open the door. And you can see, like, no matter how much he messes with it, it's going to keep kind of coming back to open the door. This is where stuff really starts to get scary, right? Like this, you put a weapon on something like this, which is already starting to happen here. That really gets scary. That guy never gets tired, right? Like he doesn't complain about the breakfast that day or anything. He's at most probably needs to go get his batteries recharged. So this literally just came out within the last day or so, which I thought was super interesting. Boston Dynamics has long said that they don't support people putting weapons on their robots, right? And now they've gotten into it with a few of these other robotics companies, basically making a joint statement saying, we're not going to weaponize our robots. The thing is they still have a lot of military application even without weapons on them. And this isn't all the robotics companies, right? So there's other robotics companies out there. One in particular, Ghost Systems. Ghost Systems doesn't give a fuck. They have versions with sniper rifles on them. They have all sorts of stuff, right? So they will gladly partner with military organizations right now to do this stuff. Really similar design to the Spot Dog, right? But there's some really impressive video of this thing actually shooting super accurately a sniper type rifle right off of the top of it. This one in the middle you may have seen recently was Russia showed this one off. The good thing is apparently it's not making a huge impact for the Russians right now because they're not doing really well apparently. Sorry, terrible joke. But the reason it's in a ninja costume is because it's a Chinese designed robot, and they were trying to hide that is what the scuttlebutt is, right? So, but that's got a launcher on top of it again. You could presumably get this into situations where you wouldn't want to get a person, but you're not as worried about a robot, right? So stuff gets really scary. This one again on the right is already being used at an Air Force base. They're already training with these things, right? They're basically like a lot of special forces and stuff. We'll have these in tow, use them for different functions. Very similar to kind of like they use like a canine, right? Like get it into places where you need to look, where maybe you're not comfortable having a person, all sorts of stuff like that. So this is not super crazy, right? Like we're not at Skynet level yet, but it's just going to take one exploit. I think Mr. Fowler's going to cause what happens to us here probably. So why not just hack the robot, right? So the first rule of hacking, right, is that everything is hackable, right? Now that's with a caveat, right? Like sometimes that requires access. I don't know about you. I don't have a Boston Dynamics $40,000 robot at my house to mess with necessarily, but people do have access to that, right? even commercial robots, the talk that I saw at B-Sides where they were given the talk about how they kind of secured their robot platform, they spent a lot of effort to really put anti-hacking measures into that robot. There's code signing, there's execution protection, there's all of this stuff that goes into it. And I think the difference is because the liability is potentially really big for them, right? Like that, that robot does something that it's not supposed to. So there's a lot of thought that goes into kind of the securing of the robots. And again, it's a timing issue. How much time do you have to kind of mess with that robot and kind of figure out, how to hack it? A completely autonomous robot like that dog that we were looking at might not have a lot of interfaces to it, right? Like there may not be a radio interface that could be on purpose, right? Like both to make it quiet when it's going around, so you can't use like signals intelligence to detect the robot. But then, again, to kind of reduce the hackability of the robot, right? So that's completely a possibility. It could be that there's just a physical interface to the robot, and again, it may be really tough to get physically interfaced to the robot if it's biting you or if it's beating on you with something, So again, the option is to kind of kill the robot in another way, right? And so that's where we get to like an electromagnetic pulse, right? It's basically a burst of electric energy that will disable or mess with some sort of electronics, right? I probably don't need to tell anybody here that there's all sorts of electronics that you could use this on, so it's kind of the ultimate denial of service, honestly, in some instances. Somebody brought up a really good point that maybe there's the potential for those key systems where you could basically blast it as you're going by and disable it. If it's not a fail close type of situation. But yeah. So that was. So there's kind of several natural sources of EMP. Solar flares are a super common one. There's typically a lot of chat about the danger of like a really good solar flare hitting us, knocking out the internet, things like that. When you see the northern lights, that's a lot of what you're seeing, right? Is like basically like solar flare activity hitting our planet and kind of getting shoved off by the magnetics. Static discharge is actually a form of EMP, and if you're old school like I am and used to work on PCs back in the 80s, it was very easy to fry a PC just because you'd walked around on the carpet a little bit and then you go touch a RAM chip and the RAM's dead because it was just a little shock. Probably not a great way to disable a robot, like because you got to shuffle your feet a lot and you got to run after them, but. Lightning is also a form of EMP, right? Like you can do a lot of a direct strike, lightning strike against like an electrical thing, something like that. This happens a lot where it'll disable a decent portion of electricity kind of in the area. There are military applications for EMPs. The North Korean guy is famous for threatening us with this. Not only are there specific devices that do this, but a nuclear strike at a high altitude would do a whole ton of damage. I've seen like heat maps basically where like if you did one over New York, and it would not only basically kill most of New York, but like a decent pitch around it. So and potentially. I don't say more damaging than an actual strike, but again, if you're real selective with a couple of these, you don't do a lot of civilian damage, but you basically knock power out. There's been some really good examples, like when the power went out in New York the one time. It doesn't take long for the wheels to fall off, right? Like just people start going crazy. So there's devices like this that are remote, or not remote, but mobile, right? And again, part of what we'll get to on the designs. The portable aspect of it gets a little questionable, and this is the same trouble I had when I was doing my drone research. Batteries and capacitors are very heavy, right? So, as you scale up your capacity, the weight typically goes up quite a bit. That's kind of the thing with the Teslas now, right? Is they're very heavy, right? And it's because all the batteries that are in them. So, so setups like this, they even have a similar setup I've seen where they use it for crowd dispersion. It's got like almost like a microwave signal that it'll use, and you can kind of direct it at crowds and get people to go away, probably. So how am I doing? Okay, so onto the designs. So again, I've been sitting on this talk probably for a couple of years. The big thing was I just didn't think it would be as fun over video, and I wasn't convinced that I wasn't going to fry my video feed as I was doing my presentation, which is kind of a complication here, which is why I'm going to be a little bit away. This should be pretty low power stuff, right? But we're going to talk through a couple of caveats here that I ran into. Quick quote. Research is what I'm doing when I don't know what I'm doing. It's one of my favorite quotes. I really feel like stuff like this especially is just kind of a grab bag of let's go try some stuff, let's see what works. It's not, it never feels like a science project. It feels like an art project, right? Like you're just kind of like trying things on. So that's one of my favorite quotes. So a basic EMP design. And give me 1 second. I got this guy up here if anybody wants to come up and peep it later, right? So that was my first design, basically, right? There's really just some simple components to a basic EMP, right? Like you need a mechanism to charge. You typically need some sort of capacitor, and the reason you need a capacitor is because you need to kind of get all the charge built up, and then you need to quickly, kind of disperse it, right? So it turns out on this specific design that well, I'll get to that in 1 second. Typically a magnetic coil, which is what you see kind of where the tape is. It's actually magnetic wire that's kind of coiled around it a bunch to make the coil. You need a switch. That's just a light switch from Home Depot for this specific design. And then optionally, you can put in a high voltage generator. My first design did not have that. My second one does, and I'll kind of show you the difference. But that's really all you need. Everything after that is just a matter of scale, right? So it's just bigger capacitors, bigger wire, make a bigger boom, so to speak, for your EMP, right? So again, design number one, the capacitor actually came out of an instant camera. If you had told me you could still buy an instant camera online with film in it still, I don't even know where you'd go to get film processed anymore. You probably have to send it in. But it turns out that the thing that runs the flash on these is perfect because it's exactly that kind of thing I'm talking about, right? Like you charge it up and then it's a quick shot, which is what does the flash part, right? So I will warn you, you will shock the hell out of yourself, even on a low-powered thing like this. That was one of the reasons. You're way braver than I am if you get more high-powered than what I've come up with up here, because even just that little bit of juice like really got me. I had a full head of hair before I did that. That picture, that second picture there is kind of the actual capacitor out of it, and then again, basically it's just a wire between. It's just wiring between the capacitor on one side, the switch, the coil on the other side. You put a battery in it, right? Just like like the camera would have. There's a button on the back. You can't really see it, but you hit it to charge the capacitor, and then you just flip the switch, and it basically juices it. This design is not very show friendly because there's nothing like really happens unless you're like killing an electronic. So it readily killed electronics. And I had this whole thing about how I was going to get up here and say it's super low powered, it shouldn't do any damage. And then I ran into a problem. Later that day, my Ring doorbell quit working. My Ring doorbell was not super far from where I was firing this off. My office is actually at the front of the house, so there's probably like a 3 to 4 foot distance between me and at least where the wiring was for the Ring doorbell. I couldn't believe it. Like I'm literally like, there's no effing way I killed my Ring doorbell. But I tried everything. The device is completely dead, right? Like, I think I don't know if I brought it with me, but I checked all the voltages at both the where the chime is and the door. I had plenty of juice. It's just the device was completely dead. I'm sure it's completely a coincidence. I don't want to make anybody nervous about what I'm about to do here, but again, so when I say this is my most expensive talk ever, it really is because the actual device is probably $10 in parts, but then it cost me $280 to replace my stupid Ring doorbell. So yeah, luckily there's a really good expense reimbursement program through B-Sides. So I was glad Aaron picked that up for me. So I like that design. It's still kind of clunky. There's a guy online that does these tasers actually, and I was like, a taser is perfect. And there's a couple things that make it perfect, right? Again, it's portable. It's got basically the thing in the middle there is a what they call a boost step-up power module high voltage generator. So what comes in on the end is basically 9 volts. What comes out on the other side is significantly more. It turns it into a square wave, which is kind of what we need for this. There's some capacitance in the end of it. I had some extra capacitors in it, and I took it out because, again, I don't want to kill anyone, especially Aaron. Aaron's going to come up here and help me with this. But it basically what you do is you take apart a 9-volt battery, you take the top of it and use that as your new plug, and then that's the plug for the bottom. You wire up the thing to your voltage generator, and then if you have the wires at the perfect amount apart, then you'll get a little spark on the end, and it's literally a functional taser, which is great for nerds. Like if somebody's beating you up at the bar, you just get this thing out. It's perfectly fine, right? Basically, what you do to this thing is you add the coil. So I've got a coil over here, and then it's a functional EMP at that point, right? Same kind of thing. You get kind of a buildup of electricity. It kind of shoots it out all at once, magnetizes the coil, and you get kind of an EMP effect, right? So. Then one more slide. Again, Wolf had almost the identical picture on his slides. I swear we didn't coordinate this, but so one of the big things is wear protective gear when you're doing this. I learned this the hard way. I've juiced myself pretty good on this a couple times at this point, especially when you're wiring it. Rest in peace to my Ring doorbell. Be really careful with these, like what you have it around. Even low power, I think, can do some damage. So a device like this is probably illegal. Luckily, we're not streaming this, and there's going to be no YouTube video, so I feel fine. But yeah, it's definitely like frowned upon by the FCC. I think in a low power situation like this, where we're not actually killing an electronic, I'm going to demo it here in a second. We're fine. If I disappear, this is what happened. So. And then kind of the big thing, and this was really kind of the same thing that I learned on my drone project, is batteries are heavy, right? So like getting a good mix of like the right power output on stuff with the right amount of battery, is difficult. So you'll see how I scratched out portable. I should have just called it practical short range. Now, all this being said, if I was in a real situation where a robot dog is going to be taking over my house, I think you could potentially set up a device that's kind of more stationary, more like an IED, let's say, and be able to have much more capacity like at a specific spot. But again, to have enough juice to really do real damage to one of those robots, I think you're going to need a pretty hefty device. So my buddy Jason had sent me a picture of I guess you put shells in there. It's like this vest, and I'm like, man, that seems great, but boy, if that thing goes off when you're wearing that, you would you're electrify your head off, basically. So No questions yet. I'm staying away from everything. Hang on. So it's pretty it's got pretty good juice to it. Actually, Aaron, I need you real quick here.
I'm moving my laptop. Oh, it takes the nog.
So originally, I had this whole bit where I was going to put on a Rick outfit, and then I was like, "What if I catch my hair on fire?" Like, but I got a flask for it, and I was like, "Well, this is still going to kind of take the edge off of the banana sipping cream, right? It goes good in your coffee in the morning, by the way. Not when you got to go to work. So, oh, we need something to kill, right? Sorry, Wolf. So that is an X59. No, I have no idea. It was literally the toaster from home. I'm not actually gonna fry my toaster. I was just being funny.
The construction on this device is like 2 nails, 2 framing nails that are standing up.
No. Please, none of the builder space look really closely at my soldering here, please. Like, yeah, I'm not good. So my buddy Patrick actually turned me onto this idea, which was great. This is an old timey kind of radio. This thing costs like $10. What's nice about it is you can see the spark once I wire the coil up. There's not gonna be a spark to it anymore because everything's going through the coil. But what's nice about this is I can turn the radio on, and you'll be able to hear kind of the interruption in the electronics and the signal as this happens. So.
I don't think I should. I'm trying to cut back on spending lately. Didn't you download that?
It could have been a song or something.
The one
Jeez.
that gives you cash back?
If I did this too much, the radio would actually die. So I got 2 of them just in case, but you can hear. It's a nice way to kind of be able to hear the actual EMP effect on it. Look, nobody was killed. That was great. So we're about out of time. Anybody have any quick questions before I skedaddle? It is happy hour, so I bought drinks for everyone. Scott. So older type of electronics are going to fall over easier, right? But it's literally not any different than like that static discharge I was talking about. Like when you touch RAM chips, like it's just taking the bits and basically just just electrifying it. It's just more. There's more of a field to it because of the EMP, right? And there's more of a burst. So kind of similar to an electrostatic charge. It's short, right? Like there's a short range to it. You can make these things directional a little bit by basically like attaching a big pipe to it and a whole bunch of coil, and it'll shoot. Again, I don't recommend that one either. But yeah, it's just kind of frying the electronics. Older like transistor type of stuff will actually die. Newer stuff, especially like solid state, you're just going to kind of jumble the bits, and I think you could probably even go back and like reset the like a flash drive or something like that would probably still be fine. But yeah, so. Yeah, no, I like the way you think. Next talk. I think next year, this one is going to be out here. So, did you have some? I'll let you know. That's a yeah. That's a really good question. So the thing is like, that was one of my other like COVID projects was I got a kit and I built an electric guitar. So, but yeah, the way it's kind of wired through and everything, I would think you might be able to, like as you were playing, you might hear some of the disturbance from the electricity. I could try that. Like, yeah, that's interesting. No. I'm gonna have to try this. No, that's interesting. Yeah, yeah. I'm sure it would do something. I just don't know what it would sound like, or if it would actually damage like the pickups or something. I wouldn't think so, but yeah. I'm telling you. um, Anybody? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. The coil is quite a bit away from the device for one, and everything. All I don't know if this makes sense. All the electricity is going this way, right? So basically, I'm going from battery. It's coming through the wires. The voltage booster is basically pushing it out the wires this way, and then it's coming down the coil. So even any of the directionality should be pretty kind of focused right within the coil right there, if that makes sense. So yeah. Thanks guys for having me. It was super awesome to have B-Sides in person again. Love you guys.
My only feedback was that was not tequila. That was awesome. Mike also has great war stories too. Ask him about his war dialing days. He'll be more than happy to tell you about them. Cool. So that's yeah, 2022. We did.